With just days to go before a possible government shutdown, the White House has taken an extraordinary step, ordering federal agencies to plan for mass firings, not the usual temporary furloughs. The threat of permanent layoffs marks a sharp escalation in a budget standoff between the Trump administration and congressional Democrats. Here's the backdrop. Each year, Congress must pass spending bills to keep the government running. If lawmakers miss the deadline of midnight on September 30th, they typically approve a short-term fix called a continuing resolution. This time, negotiations are stuck. The White House and Republican leaders want a clean extension that would fund the government for roughly 7 more weeks. Democrats insist the same bill must also renew Affordable Care Act subsidies that lower health insurance costs for millions of Americans. Talks have stalled, and President Trump has canceled a meeting with Democratic leaders, raising the odds of a shutdown. In previous shutdowns, non-essential employees were furloughed, sent home without pay, but later brought back with full back pay. The Office of Management and Budget now instructs agencies to prepare for a reduction in force, government language for permanent layoffs that eliminate positions altogether. The memo singles out programs losing money on October 1st and deemed not consistent with the president's priorities. The administration says the memo is a precaution and blames Democrats for what it calls unserious and ridiculous demands. From the White House's perspective, the possibility of job losses is leverage to force a funding bill without the health care provisions. Democratic leaders see the move as intimidation. Senate Minority Leader Schumer predicts any mass firings would be overturned by the courts or reversed later. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was more blunt, telling the OMB director to get lost and labeling him a malignant political hack. Federal employee unions accuse both parties of playing a high-stakes game of chicken while workers are caught in the middle. What happens if the shutdown and firings proceed? For hundreds of thousands of employees, the uncertainty stretches far beyond a missed paycheck. Many could lose their careers outright. For the public, a shutdown means familiar disruptions, closed national parks, delayed passport processing, while essential services such as Social Security payments, Medicare, military operations, and air traffic control continue. Critics warn that permanently losing experienced staff would drain institutional knowledge and weaken the government long after the shutdown ends. With the September 30th deadline fast approaching, neither side shows signs of budging. The immediate question is whether Congress can strike a deal in time to avert a shutdown. The larger question is whether the threat of unprecedented mass firings will reshape the federal workforce or simply become another flashpoint in an already bitter political showdown. In the coming days, the fate of government funding and the livelihoods of many federal workers will be decided at the negotiating table, or, if talks fail, in the fallout that follows.
A major policy shift in Washington is causing confusion and concern, particularly in California, where the state's top attorney is now considering legal action. The Trump administration has dramatically changed the rules for the H-1B visa, a program that companies, especially in the tech sector, rely on to hire skilled foreign workers. This has prompted a swift response from California, a state whose economy is deeply intertwined with global talent. To understand the current situation, it's important to first understand what the H-1B visa is. It's a temporary visa that allows U.S. employers to hire foreign professionals for jobs that require specialized knowledge, usually a bachelor's degree or more. Think software engineers, doctors, and scientists. For decades, this program has been a key pathway for skilled individuals from around the world to work in the United States. In fact, many well-known tech leaders, like the CEOs of Google and Microsoft, first came to the U.S. on H-1B visas. The program is so popular that the annual cap of 85,000 visas is consistently overwhelmed with applications, leading to a lottery system to decide who gets one. Now, the Trump administration has introduced two significant changes to this system. First, effective September 21, 2025, a new mandatory $100,000 fee has been placed on each new H-1B application. This is a massive increase from the previous fees, which were typically under $5,000. The White House has clarified that this is a one-time fee for new applicants and does not apply to current visa holders or those seeking renewals. The second major change is a proposed overhaul of the lottery system itself. Instead of a random drawing, the new system would be weighted to favor applications for higher-paying jobs. The higher the salary offered, the better the chances of being selected. This new regulation is expected to be in place for the spring 2026 lottery. The administration states that these changes are designed to encourage companies to hire American workers first and to ensure that the H-1B program is used to attract the best and the brightest, not to hire cheaper foreign labor. These abrupt changes have sent shockwaves through many industries, but the reaction has been particularly strong in California. The state's Attorney General, Rob Bonta, has announced his office is conducting a legal review of the new rules. Bonta is specifically looking at whether the administration violated the Federal Administrative Procedure Act. This law requires the government to provide a reasoned justification for policy changes and prevents arbitrary and capricious rules made without public input. Bonta has voiced concerns that the new policies will create uncertainty and unpredictability for California's businesses and harm the state's innovation-driven economy. The tech industry, a cornerstone of California's economy, has been thrown into a state of confusion. While large corporations like Google and Amazon might be able to absorb the new six-figure fee, there are significant concerns about the impact on smaller startups and mid-sized companies. These businesses often operate on tighter budgets and may no longer be able to afford to hire the international talent they need to grow and innovate. This has led to fears that companies might be forced to move jobs overseas. The impact isn't limited to the for-profit sector. Universities and nonprofit research institutions, which are normally exempt from the annual H-1B cap, also rely on these visas to hire top researchers and academics from around the world. For these organizations, a $100,000 fee per applicant could be prohibitive. Immigration lawyers and advocates have also raised legal questions, with some arguing that the executive branch may not have the authority to impose such a high fee without approval from Congress. The United States Chamber of Commerce is reportedly considering its own lawsuit against the administration. The changes are also expected to disproportionately affect recent international graduates from American universities, making it much harder for them to find employment in the United States after completing their studies. The initial announcement caused widespread panic and confusion, particularly among current H-1B visa holders who were traveling abroad. Some companies even advised their employees to return to the United States immediately out of fear they wouldn't be allowed back in. While the White House has since clarified that the fee only applies to new applications, a great deal of uncertainty remains. The stated goal of the administration is to protect American jobs.
However, critics argue that these changes could have the opposite effect, potentially leading to a brain drain as skilled workers choose to take their talents to other countries with more welcoming immigration policies. Economists have warned that making it more difficult and expensive to attract foreign talent could ultimately harm United States economic growth and productivity. As California's Attorney General weighs his legal options, the future of the H-1B program and the thousands of individuals and companies that depend on it hangs in the balance. The situation is still developing, and the full impact of these changes will likely unfold over the coming months, potentially in a courtroom. This is AI TV News. The Atlantic hurricane season is suddenly busy, and forecasters are watching two systems whose proximity is making the outlook unusually tricky for Florida and the entire East Coast. First, Tropical Storm Humberto. As of Thursday, September 25th, Humberto is roughly 480 miles east-northeast of the northern Leeward Islands with sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. Gradual but steady strengthening is expected. The storm should reach hurricane strength this weekend and could become a major hurricane, Category 3 or higher early next week. Current projections bend Humberto northward between Bermuda and the U.S. mainland. That keeps the center offshore, but its broad wind field will send powerful swells toward the shoreline. Expect dangerous surf, life-threatening rip currents, and pockets of minor coastal flooding from Saturday through much of next week. Closer to the United States sits Invest 94L, a disorganized but growing tropical wave now spreading heavy rain and gusty winds across Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. The system has a high chance of becoming a tropical depression or storm named Imelda if it reaches that threshold, once it reaches the warmer waters near the Bahamas. Residents from South Florida through the Carolinas should pay close attention over the next several days, as even small changes in strength or steering currents could shift the eventual track toward or away from the coast next week. The real wild card is a rare dance called the Fujiwara effect. When two tropical cyclones move within about 900 miles of one another, their circulations can start to orbit a common center, much like two figure skaters spinning around clasped hands. Described a century ago by Japanese meteorologist Sakuhei Fujiwara, the phenomenon is far more common in the Pacific, but it does happen in the Atlantic. The most recent notable case involved tropical storms Philippe and Rina in 2023. If Humberto and the future Imelda draw close enough, several scenarios become possible. Scenario 1, the stronger of the two, likely Humberto, pulls the weaker cyclone into its flow and eventually absorbs it, nudging everything seaward. Scenario 2, the storms are of comparable strength and pinwheel around each other before slingshotting off in different directions. Scenario 3, the least common, they merge into a single larger storm with an even broader wind field. Each outcome carries a different set of risks for the United States. Should Humberto dominate, much of the impact may remain offshore, limited mainly to surf, rip currents, and coastal erosion. If, however, the developing system intensifies quickly and keeps its own identity, it could ride the periphery of Humberto's circulation and angle back toward land, increasing the chance of a direct strike somewhere along the southeastern or mid-Atlantic coast next week. Regardless of which path unfolds, certain effects are locked in. Surf and rip currents. Large, long-period swells from Humberto will pound beaches from Florida to New England. Even experienced swimmers can be caught in rip currents. Heed local beach flags and lifeguard warnings. Coastal flooding and erosion. Onshore winds and high astronomical tides will combine to push water onto normally dry land, especially in inlets and low-lying barrier islands. Heavy rain. Deep tropical moisture funneling between the two systems could drop torrential downpours over parts of the southeast and mid-Atlantic, raising the threat of flash flooding far from the coastline. To recap, Tropical Storm Humberto is expected to become a major hurricane, but should stay offshore. Invest 94L is the system with greater landfall potential, and a possible Fujiwara interaction keeps the forecast highly uncertain. Review your hurricane plans, stock up on essentials, and stay tuned to official updates. The next few days will determine whether these storms perform a harmless dance at sea or bring more serious consequences ashore.